My name is Alex Verdugo, and I live in the town of East Hampton for around 20 years at this point. During the pandemic, changed a lot of different aspects on the way we respond. Just because we have to wear a full PPE when we were responding to IFC calls, and we also had to be careful with what we're wearing. We had to change our clothes periodically, and every time we went to an emergency call, um, I had to actually get a routine when I get to my house. It's just take all my clothes off, leave outside, and then just jump right into the hot tub. That way, whatever I got into myself, we stayed outside, and then we periodically clean our hot tub because that's pretty much was my decontamination place. I think just the aspect of us protecting more ourselves, like using masks, using gloves, and every single type of a different emergency was a good thing because we didn't use it before. It's just because it was needed or we didn't really use it much. And the other thing was, just decontaminate yourself using hand sanitizer more often, washing your hands more often. So it's stuff that I think it stay with all of us, and it's a good thing, um, and it's gonna help everybody to stay away of those viruses a little bit better. I think the biggest aspect was of our volunteers were really scared of the fact that we didn't know what we were walking into it, and especially our elders, EMTs, they were asked not to respond for the reason of different kind of health concerns, health issues than they had it. So we wanted to keep our core more healthy, and at that point the younger people were the ones who had to step up and start doing a lot of more work than the older, which they used to do it and they had more times in their hands before, but now they couldn't respond it, or if you had some age, you had to kind of stay in just because the knowing was really the killer for all of us. Well, absolutely put a big stress into the ambulance just because didn't had the people who used to respond before. Now we put a lot of stress, I think, into the ADs, which are our paid paramedics, because they had to do a lot of the work, and then the drivers, which we used to just drive. Now we had to help them and put it full PPE and stuff like that. So it put different type of stress in a different kind of people than they weren't that active before, and now we became more active just because we didn't have the people who were active before. So it showed in the way that the ambulance got so close together to kind of help, or trying to help as much as we could. The volume of calls actually dropped drastically in the time of COVID, just because people were scared to go to the hospitals. They were scared to call us. But in the other token is people were calling because they were really sick. And in that point, we were responding to situations where people shouldn't be that sick, but they were because of the scary of going to the hospital. I think the one unique with the pandemic was that everybody was scared when there was an FC call, which was someone who was positive with COVID. So it's just scaring everyone because it was hard to get close to the person, or we didn't know really what or how to react in that point. So I think that was the most impressive thing to see how people start to walking away from it. We had people who got the COVID, yes, but none of them got in a really severe aspect of it. I'm a lieutenant of Company 1 in the fire department, which we are the ladder truck, the roof operations, and search and rescue. So I do search and rescue. I'm also part of the diving team, heavy rescue team, the RE team. So there's a different type of teams which the fire department has it, which I'm a member of it, and helping people in a different type of situations. And I also I'm a business owner here in East Hampton. My company is Climate Street Care, and I've been in business since 2007. So I'm a pretty active and busy person at this point. Well, we've been calling when we have drowning people, or we trying to we were mutual aid to different in other area, in other towns, for people who went swimming and went missing in the water. If there is people who few years in the pond, I think, drove the cars inside the pond. So the diving team is, it's called in that type of situations where people goes underwater. We had, I think, 2 3 times where we were calling mutual aids more to Montauk and Sag Harbor. In here in East Hampton, I think was just once, just because in the ice a dog went through the ice, so we were called to help them out at that point. It was back in a hook pond. Um, the dog had run off their owner and went into the ice, and the ice broke because it was thin. So at that point, we were calling to rescue the dog, and we got it out. We put our ice rescue suits, got in the water, and safely we got the dog out of the water. We had a more influx of people coming into our town, and it wasn't. I would say it was more people who owned their places here, and they were already here, but they were weekenders or something like that. But it affected us to have more people in the community, and our first responder service had to. The stress which got into our officers and chiefs was a little bit different, because now you're dealing with a different type of community, wealthy community, which sometimes they're easy to deal with, sometimes more difficult to deal with. But in the same time, that's the same community which keeps us working, keeps us here, and because of in the way they keep their houses, in the way they do all the stuff and they do, we can afford to live in these areas. So it's a good, in my point of view, it's a good thing. Then they're here, if they're here to stay, but they live here, they own their places here, so they have the right to stay and live here as same way as we do here. We got stronger together. That would be my. You saw people stepping up where if it wasn't for the pandemic, they would never have done it. So I think the pandemic brought the best out of us, and in some cases the worst. So you really knew who people were when the pandemic started.